Hi everybody. My name is Deborah, Debbie. You guys can call me Dee Dee. But I am here today just to share more about myself, my story, some of the different challenges that I've gone through as a mom. But I'm a mom of one. I have a 2-year old named Charlie Marie. And of course, my husband and I have been together for quite a while. We met in 2019. So we've been married since 2021. So yeah, 3 years married. Thank you. Thank you. So
Uh,
I still consider us to be newlyweds in the sense of like we're not like 5 years or 10 years in when it's like, but I still feel like we're in our little happy bubble still. But yeah, that's all about me. I mean, I'm one of 6 siblings. I have a very large extended family, a great village, as I could say. It's always good to have siblings nearby to help out. So yeah, that's me.
Yay, I love that. You always have to celebrate your marriage and all the accomplishments that you guys have had every step of the way, because there's a lot of attack coming from all corners when it comes to parenting and family. So it is no small feat. You got to
Yeah.
celebrate that. Tell me about just your journey in wanting to be pregnant and expanding your family.
Yes, I unexpectedly became pregnant. We had gotten married in 2021, like I said. We had our court date in January, and then we had our big wedding celebration in June of 2021. So with an unplanned pregnancy, I struggled at first because I was excited to be pregnant. It wasn't like a sense of doom or anything. I was happy about it, but I just didn't expect it. And prior to becoming pregnant, I have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes,
Mm.
and I had a diagnosis with papillary thyroid cancer,
Wow.
which apparently affects women of reproductive age who don't even find out that they have thyroid issues until they become pregnant. So that was my case with me. And so it was a huge shock to be navigating all of that in addition to the news that I had just become pregnant. And I found out I was pregnant in late 2021. I probably say around December, early January, around that time. So I was worried. I was somewhat frantic, like, okay, how am I going to manage my diabetes medications and now this new thyroid issue? What are we going to do around that? So that was my initial reaction to finding out I was pregnant.
Wow, that's definitely a lot. I know getting diagnosed with diabetes, especially now going into pregnancy with that, right? It comes with
Yeah.
challenges. We know that when you have gestational diabetes, your baby's a little bit bigger, and so you have to monitor your
Hmm.
diet. There's certain ways you have to eat, and some people have to take medications. So knowing that you had to go through that diagnosis into pregnancy and then having the diagnosis of thyroid cancer, like
Yeah.
what did your pregnancy look like, and how were you managing all of these things?
It was a lot to digest. At the time, my husband Chris was really my shoulder to lean on, my person to kind of just say, okay, well, I'm going to this appointment, that appointment. So we kind of made a schedule and we kind of were each other's like backbone in terms of like the emotional support behind it. In my case, I had diabetes before I was pregnant, right? So I had the diabetes diagnosis in 2017.
Got
So
you.
I had already kind of been managing it to where I was doing really well. Like my hemoglobin A1C was good. It was around maybe a 7 or so. And I had been managing that for a few years.
Mm.
Even without insulin, I was doing well. I was on Ozempic at the time, and I had begun to lose a lot of weight, and I felt like I had a good control over that. But now coming into becoming pregnant, you can't take Ozempic when you're
Oh.
pregnant. So I had to switch all of my medications to now it was becoming a insulin requiring form of diabetes.
Mm.
So that was the new challenge for me in navigating doctor's visits and just seeing my nurse. My endocrinologist is amazing. And he's like, I'm going to get you with our nurse who's going to keep you on a real strict regimen as far as like how much insulin you take with each meal. And gradually, we just work our way up with the insulin. Every 2 weeks, they were adjusting. Every month, they were
Wow.
adjusting. So I just begun to take small amounts of insulin. I think my first dose of Novolog with meals started at maybe 5 or 10 units, and then
Mm.
slowly work our way up. So Novolog and Levemir were the things that I were prescribed to manage diabetes at the time. And the thyroid cancer, unfortunately, they couldn't do anything with that because when you're pregnant, of course, you don't want to do any type of surgery. So I was advised by my endo to get that cancer removed postpartum. So after I had the baby.
Wow. So I'm imagining you are carrying this diagnosis of thyroid cancer and you're carrying it for 9 months.
Yeah.
What is your mental state in handling insulin injections and handling just the thought process that you're walking around with thyroid cancer that's not being treated?
Yeah. I mean, as you can imagine, it's literally like I'm walking on eggshells every day.
Mm.
And with thyroid cancer, I say this all the time. It is a terrible thing to say, but it's like if you're gonna have cancer, that's the best type of cancer to
Yeah.
have.
Mhm.
Because like literally no chemo, nothing, no radiation treatments. The only major symptom I'd have at the time was fatigue,
Mm.
which most pregnant women are tired anyways.
Yeah.
So I would just be taking my naps
Mm.
like 2, 3 times a day. Could barely keep my eyes open, especially in the first trimester. That was a huge challenge. And I think the stigma and the pain that I carried most was, what if something happens to my baby?
Mm.
Then I was constantly on eggshells thinking about if anything happens, it's totally my fault because
Mm.
I didn't plan this pregnancy well. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I have to go to the doctor every 2 weeks adjusting medication. Like, it was really becoming a sense of anxiety for me and very much walking around on eggshells every day. Like, looking at my diet. Of course, they had dietitians to speak to me and things like that, and they were awesome, but I think that it was very, very challenging. And have I not had my background in public health nutrition, and what I know just from my like career background, I feel like it would have been even harder for me to wrap my head around it.
And well, thank God for just your background because I think a lot of women are sent home. And granted, yes, there's a dietitian and everything, but there's nothing
Yeah.
like being in the house and having these instructions and being like, forget it. Just hand me the Cheerios and the milk,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
give me the cookies. So I definitely think that having that background probably was just God preparing you for that diagnosis. So
Yes, yes.
Oh man. So, once you got through your 9 months, tell me a little bit about how childbirth was for you. Was it everything that you expected?
I would say even prior to childbirth, that third trimester was the hardest
Mm.
because I was having other issues, other complications with UTI, with polyhydramnios, which is the increased amniotic fluid.
Wow.
Another complication I had because of the diabetes was, in addition to the fatigue, they were watching my blood pressure like clockwork.
Mm.
And thank God I didn't have any issues with high blood pressure, preeclampsia.
Yeah.
I was given a baby aspirin to monitor that. So that was all prepping me for birth, the aspirin, the monitors, just keeping
Mm.
track, making sure that nothing was going on with the baby. And then I was in the hospital sometime around my third trimester
Mm,
just to make sure that the baby was okay. They were checking her heart rate. They were, like I said, again, very careful about the blood pressure and very careful about treating my UTI at the time so that I could be discharged home and I would have a safe delivery because
yeah.
I was getting pretty close at 6 months to having her. And then under the care and the guidance of my OBGYN, she was able to recommend that I have my daughter at 36 weeks.
Wow.
As close to 37 as I could get, but not like to push me to the edge of having her at 40 weeks because she was just like, let's just get her as soon as we can because we're trying to prevent any other complications because at 6 months you're already having some issues that we need to make sure we nip this in the bud. So I really appreciate her for that. She was awesome for making that call to get me induced early.
Mm.
So when she called me, she's like, we're gonna get you in there. I'm like, babe, it's time to go. So I called Chris. He's like, oh my gosh, we're doing this. I'm like, you better pack your bag
Mm.
because we're gonna be in the hospital for a minute. So she had already explained to me what day I need to come into the hospital, what time, and to check in and all that stuff. So I had all my cute little baby clothes ready, my
Man.
toiletries ready, and I was just excited to meet my baby girl. But now, being induced and going into delivery
Yeah.
was, woof,
Ooh, I
I'm
know about that, girl.
I'm so glad that I was like, Chris, you better take me to Applebee's before I go to this hospital.
Girl, I had McDonald's underneath my pillow.
I sacrificed and I put away so many snacks for this pregnancy so
Yes.
that I'm not out of control. This is the one time I'm gonna feast before I get
Yes.
to that hospital. So I had the best food.
Mm.
I loaded up on everything. I think they had me come in on Thursday, August 18th. I'll never forget that date because I was like, I'm about to be hungry. So I came in with my belly full on Thursday, August
Um,
18th of 22. And then they started with different medications. We tried a lot of different things coming into childbirth. I had already signed an agreement with her that I would do like the induction with
yeah,
Pitocin.
the
I'll be
balloon,
doing the Foley balloon. I will be doing everything to get this
everything.
baby out. So she had me hooked up to all the things, started my drip going,
Mm.
and it took a while. I
Mm.
think I was probably finally about 2 to 3 centimeters dilated the next day. So
Wow.
Friday, I finally became dilated with something. And by that time, I'm just like, Lord, I don't know when I'm going to eat. So we started the fully balloon. We started a little bit more aggressive measures, kicking in that Pitocin, getting that epidural started early, doing everything we can to get baby going. So finally, we started making some progress. I was about 5 centimeters, then six.
Mm.
So going into Friday night, I was like, okay, we got this.
Got this.
So soon enough, after all the medications and everything, I became fully dilated. I started pushing at 10 centimeters dilated, using like a peanut ball and stuff like that, just doing different positions. I was side lying. I was on all fours. I
Mm.
was on my back, like I was walking around. I was
Well,
using the
thank God
little,
your doctor allowed you
yeah.
to do all that. I love that. Love.
They allowed me to do a lot of things to try to get her head down.
Mm.
And she was there. She was right there. I kept pushing, pushing. 2 hours later, still pushing.
Wow.
3 hours later, I'm like, where is this baby? Okay, we have a mirror. I'm like, can I have a mirror so I can see her? I see her head there, still pushing. And then my doctor's like, girl, I thought we would have had a baby now. Like, what is So she comes back and she's like, You've been doing so good, Deb. You did your epidural. You've been pushing on schedule. Whenever you feel the contractions, you've been doing this, but the baby is not here.
Mm.
So I think we need to have a C-section. And I'm like, no.
Oh
I
my
cried
God.
so hard. Like, seriously. I felt so bad, Erica. Like
Mm,
it was for me a sense of defeat. Like,
yeah.
okay. It's almost like you're right at the finish line
Mhm.
and you hit a wall. That's what I felt like
Mm,
towards the end of my delivery. And after talking to Chris and talking to his mom, my mother-in-law, who was in the room with me, like, what should I do? They're like, you did good. I give you an A for
mm,
effort. You got her there, but for whatever reason, she's not coming down. So let's just get the C-section. And so that's what we did. We had an emergency C-section, and 20 minutes later, she was there. So,
mm.
yep, yep,
Wow.
yep.
Looking back now, do you feel differently, right? Because I know a lot of women experience that, just like that grief of what they envisioned for their birth. And
Mhm,
at that time, I know a lot of women, they blame themselves and they go through all those sorts of
mhm.
emotions. But then when they look back, at some point, those feelings change. Looking back now, knowing that you made the choice to go forward and have the C-section, is your thought process different now than back then?
I think having gone through it, I think it is different now because the most important thing that my doctor always told me is just that as long as you are healthy and the baby's healthy, that's important,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So thinking about it that way, I don't feel that grief anymore. I mean, yes, it's not on the terms that I wanted. I wanted to push her out. I didn't want to have to be cut,
Yeah.
but it was for a reason. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you why. When I gave birth to Charlie, her blood sugar was so low.
Mm,
She was at 20 for her glucose. And do
mm,
you know what a normal blood sugar is for a newborn? Above 40. So they're usually looking for 43, 45, 40 something, but she was so low. And I felt like, oh my goodness, had I not had that emergency C-section,
who knows
where
what would
would
have
who
happened?
knows? Who knows what would have
Right.
happened? So I'm just so glad that they could get her out, give her a little glucose to get her blood sugar back up, and she is healthy and
Mhm.
well and is doing great, loves school right now. So, looking back at it, had I not made that decision, I don't know where I would be. And it's nothing against natural childbirth. If that's your story and you want to do it unmedicated, please, by all means, stick to your story. Your story is not my story. So I'm not
Absolutely.
going to ever tell you, oh, no, girl, don't do that. That's dangerous. You got to listen to your body and what you want. But at
Hmm.
the same time, for my high risk and the fact that I am an older mom at 36 years old now, was 34 when I had her, I would not have made it. I know that for a fact without the care and the advice of all of the practitioners involved in both my prenatal care and postpartum.
I think it's a
Hmm.
blessing to have an amazing team who is
Yeah,
supportive. And it sounds like you really had an amazing doctor who really walked you through the process and was
right.
able to just guide you. I feel like that is when you find a good doctor, you hang on to them for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's such an amazing thing for me too to have doctors of color. My
Hmm.
OBGYN is a Black woman. My endocrinologist is an older Black man, very knowledgeable. Love him because he's always looked out for me the past several years. And representation matters,
Absolutely.
right? Because it's like it's good to have someone you can relate to who looks like you, who's saying, there's a reason for this now. You may not understand it now, but we gotta get past the tears and bite the
Yes.
bullet and make better decisions just to protect ourselves and just
Absolutely.
to always. I know there's a new term of self-care, but this is another form of self-care.
Yes.
go to that doctor's visit.
Yes.
Take that medication. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because like I said, the natural route is just not for
It's not for
everyone.
everyone.
And I'm very grateful to have gone through what I've gone through.
Wow, powerful. Having been through that 9 month experience and then going through childbirth, how was postpartum for you? What were those first 12 weeks like having a newborn?
Yeah, the first 12 weeks had been, for me, I'm kind of a type A person, so I have been planning where am I going
Yeah.
to put clothes, my bassinet, my closet space, like my commute, like who am I? I had been downsizing, even with my husband, like, babe, let's share a car, because why are we
Mm.
paying two car notes when we have XYZ bills for the hospital or whatever? So I had kind of been like mentally planning a lot. So I think the 12 weeks helped. And to put things in perspective too, my village, like my older sister, like my eldest sister has her kids as well. So I kind of had a kind of foundation of, okay, I know how to change a diaper and do all the things. So it wasn't my first time seeing this and experiencing this. But for me, I feel like the challenge too was a learning experience for my husband as well,
Oh,
because
yes.
yeah, because he's an only child and he grew up not really seeing as many kids, never babysat, didn't know a diaper, didn't know wipes, didn't know how to dress the baby. So I think it was a learning experience for him more so than me. I think I learned things in another way. I think I learned more about patience and
Mm,
compassion. I learned more about him having to do things his way instead
yeah.
of the
Letting
way that
go.
I do things and just letting go, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first 12 weeks for me was just like allowing people to help me, letting my auntie come over and show me how to breastfeed. She's like, "Girl, you better just stick that nipple in the baby's mouth," because I was so careful, and she was just like, "She is not gonna break. Go ahead and stick. Let's position her. Let's get her fed." So just allowing my cousins, my aunt, people to come over and just shower me with food and presents and all the things. And so I would say the 12 weeks was great. It
Mm,
was just an awesome experience. Thankfully, I didn't really have any issues with my job because I had FMLA, maternity leave, all of that. So
mm.
I was home with my daughter for about 4 months. That
Lovely.
was a privilege to have some paid time to where I could just do all the fun things, go in the stroller, walk and get some sun. So I think that's really what kept me from going into a depression even more, because when you're worrying about finances and you know
Mhm.
what I'm saying, and trying to navigate motherhood, but you're still unable to work. So
Yeah.
that's hard for a lot of moms. So I'm just grateful that I did have the support of my employer to be like, don't worry, we got you. I'll speak to my HR and they're like, oh, you're getting such and such a check and making sure everything's lined up for me financially.
Mm,
So that's a huge burden off of my shoulders, I think, at the time. And I will say, in addition to the finances, just allowing help. Like
mm.
if I needed to go somewhere, don't go alone. I would call my cousin. Oh, hey, cuz, what you doing today? Let's go pick up the baby's birth certificate. Let's go get something to eat. You know what I mean? So, having a village like that to where I didn't feel so alone,
Yeah.
I think is critical for that postpartum time, the first 12 weeks, because you need a lot of support. I would just encourage all the moms out there, don't feel like you're alone. Reach out to a friend or a cousin or a coworker, whoever you feel comfortable talking to, and just try to, I don't want to say stay sane, but
Yeah.
keep your head above water, girl. I would
Yeah.
FaceTime people. I don't care if you lived in California, Alabama. I would FaceTime you. I will call you just to keep my head above water and just to talk and try to take my mind off of things. So that would be my recommendation.
I love hearing that because I think one of the things that a lot of women in this country face is really that lack of a village and community.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about it, we're like, find your village and get your community. But the reality is, the way our society is set up here, being very individualistic, it is something you have to be extremely intentional about because people are working 8 to 5. Your family may live across the town or in another state. Your job may not provide that support. You may not have a supportive employee. So hearing you and your story and knowing that you had a wonderful supportive 12 weeks, I know absolutely that if it were not because of your village, right? Take your experience. You say you had your cousins who you knew you could access. You had people who could go with you places. You had an aunt who could come and help you breastfeed, right? And you had the system and you had a job that allowed you to be home and not worrying about how you were going to have to pay the bills. And so if only we could clone this for a million women in
I know.
America. Like, I feel like we could literally manage or keep at bay a lot of the mental health disorders that come with pregnancy. Yes, there's a hormonal part of it too, but honestly, it's that loneliness of feeling that you have nobody who understands your struggles in that time
Mhm.
and the lack of support that really puts women at risk. So important.
Mhm.
And for our listeners who may not have the family here or the employer who can do this, what advice would you give them to trying to cultivate a village?
That's a good question. I would definitely even cultivate a village on social media
Mm,
because the amount of comments and likes and messages from women I didn't even knew, you know what I
mm,
mean, that I could reach out to or just even to share funny videos with
mm,
online or just find a sense of community that it may not look like you. Does
mm.
that understand what I'm saying? Because a
Yeah.
lot of times you're looking for immediate family members or friends, but they may not look like you. They may not look what you envision to be. Because I grew up in a very Haitian community, but
Mm,
outside of my Haitian family, who do I have? I have my coworker, good
mm,
example, Sarah. Okay.
mm.
Like, she's like, girl, I will meet you at the Chick-fil-A and give you some of my breast pumps and all of that
I love
stuff. I would have never thought that she would stick out her neck for me and just give me so much breastfeeding materials. You know
mm,
what I mean? So is she Haitian? No. Is she Black? No. But does she care about me and is she reaching out?
absolutely.
Yes. So that would be my advice to moms. Yes, you may not have the help of a sister or an aunt or a cousin, but that coworker, that friend that you haven't spoken to since college, they will be the one to reach out to you. Oh, what's your Cash App? I'm gonna send you some money. You hadn't spoken to this person in 10 years. I kid you not. So don't be surprised by how much people care about you and how much they're willing to help because they will.
Well, oh, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, we are approaching the end of our recording. And do you have any other information or just words of wisdom that you want to leave our moms with?
Words of wisdom, of course, like the Bible says, don't lean on your own understanding. Just acknowledge God in everything that you're doing. Let Him direct you in a way. And all of your anxieties and all your frustrations, give that to God. Try not to hold on to it because it's not healthy for you or for the baby. Just do little things to cheer yourself up, go for a walk, take a stretch break, call a friend. I'm big on communication like that. So that would be the advice that I give to moms out there. You're not alone. Even if you don't have a supportive spouse, y'all might be thinking, oh, Deb, well, you're married, you're this, blah, blah, blah. It does not matter. It does not matter what your support looks like. Just remember to have faith and let go, let God.
Absolutely. I love that.
Mhm.
And where can our listeners find you if they want to ask you a question?
Sure, sure. You guys can please follow me on Instagram. That's where I am
Mhm.
every day. Debbie Cakes 87. That's DEBBICAKES 87 on IG. Or, of course, you can email me directly, Deborah Lockhart Nutrition at gmail.com.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fourth Trimester Voices. If you have any questions about today's episode or you want to share your story, please email us at fourthtrimestervoices@gmail.com. My name is Dr. Choa, and it's been lovely talking with you all today. Take care.